Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dreamleapers Inspiration. I'm your host, Harriet Cole. So very happy to be with you today. I put my background as my happy place. I was there all summer and just was feeling like, oh, I want to be there now. And so I'm surrounding myself in my happy place. And I actually recommend the same for you. What is your happy place? Where is it? How does it reside within you? And what can you do to put yourself in that place no matter where you happen to be? When you can do that, when you can invoke the energy of whatever the source is that makes you feel really good, feel inspired, feel ready to take on whatever challenges there are before you, when you can invoke that, it makes your day so much sweeter. So welcome everyone. I see Charmaine. Good morning to you, and afternoon, evening, wherever you are. I have learned that we have folks who watch Dreamleapers Inspiration, some live and many on demand from all over. We've connected to people in different parts of the motherland, of Africa, from Europe, from the Caribbean, from all over the United States. And, people come as they can, when they can. It's always nice to have the people who are with me in the moment live. But the beauty of the technology that we're using today is that you can connect whenever it suits you. So welcome everyone. And I'm so glad to have you connecting with me and with each other in this moment. I was thinking about as I was watching the intro to Dreamleapers Inspiration that Fallon made that's so beautiful. One of the things it says, pardon me, one of the things that it says is about you really accessing your greatness. And I talk about this a lot, but I was reading the words about accessing your greatness. And it got me to thinking, what stands in the way of us accessing our greatness? What if you ask yourself that? We know we come together here so that we can stir that pot, so that we can engage in the practice of accessing our greatness. But what stands in the way? If you ask yourself that question, what stands in your way when you are in pursuit of really stepping fully into the greatness of you and engaging that? What stands in the way? I would love for you to record this in your journal. You can write it in the chat box. Just record it for yourself. What stands in the way of you accessing your greatness? One of the things that I believe stands in our way, myself, and I know that it's true for others as I've been talking to people, it is, I'll address it in a couple of different ways. It's the focus for today. It is falsely believing that we can do it all ourselves, falsely believing that we don't need support, falsely believing that if we ask for help, we won't get it, feeling contracted and unworthy of getting help, therefore we don't ask for help. All the ways that we look at this, to me, one of the things that stands in the way of us fully inhabiting our greatness is thinking that we have to do it alone and not asking for support, not connecting with others when we should and when we need to. And I think it can be difficult for people to muster up the courage, the clarity, and the drive to actually ask. I don't know why that's so difficult. I just know that it can be, and it often is. And as I've paid closer attention to people in my world, and I should say my world as I move about and I've been very busy of late being in the company of lots of different people, I've noticed that the people who are thriving are often the people who say, I need help. I don't really understand this. Can you help me figure this out? Uh, I know how to do this part. I need help doing that part. And I wonder, how often do you ask for help when you need it? Think about it. How often do you do that? And by the way, how often do you offer help when you see that it is needed in the moment? Like, how, if you just think of a simple action, walking down the street, you see somebody in need. How often do you pause from whatever it is that you're doing and go over and help that person? Ask if the person needs anything. How often do you do that? How often are you too busy to even notice and you just go tunnel vision, continuing to do whatever it is that was on your list of things to do? So if you think about how often you help others, I want you to evaluate it honestly. How often do you make the effort to help somebody else when you notice that the person is in need? Like those easy things, like somebody needs help crossing the street, or somebody dropped something and you help them pick it up, or those kinds of things that are super obvious. Okay, then let's move on to when it's less obvious. Someone in the workplace, someone, if you're in class, someone in class who needs some support. How often do you pause and say, let me help that person? Evaluate for yourself how often you help others. And then I want you to turn it and ask yourself, how often do you ask for help when you need it? And what stands in the way? All of those insecurities that we have are things that I believe stand in the way for many people. Like, I think of being in class, which is similar to uh, being at the conference table at work, in the in an ideas meeting, or in some kind of presentation meeting that you might be in. As people are talking and ideas are flowing, what do you do when you don't understand what's happening? What do you do when you're not quite sure of what's going on in that moment, what the discussion is? You don't understand something that someone has shared. How often do you ask for clarification? How often do you say, I don't really understand that? Could you explain that differently? Or could you define that term? I don't know what it means. Could you help me understand what it is that is being discussed right now? How often do you do that? On the contrary, how often do you just sit back, kind of swallow it and go, oh, if I share that I don't know, then people are going to look at me like I'm stupid. People are going to judge me because I don't know what they know. How often do you find yourself in that situation and then you just clam up? And instead of asking for clarification, for understanding, for support, so that you can be fully in the mix of that moment, you just shut down. So many people do this. It is a common behavior. And I understand it. You don't want to be the only one in the room who doesn't know something. So, of course, I think there's strategy to asking for help. I don't think you ask for it all the time. But when you don't know something, when you need someone else to support you, why would you shut yourself down from it? Instead, you can prepare. So let's talk about a meeting, because most of us participate in meetings, whether it is for work, for a civic organization, for school, whatever it might be. You go to whatever the engagement is prepared, right? You want to be prepared. So you have done whatever the research is, you know what the topic of the meeting is. You have done your homework, so to speak. So you are as prepared as you can be for that moment. That's super important because it shows that you have put forth the effort to show up ready to engage in whatever the moment is. When you are ready, you can be part of an informed conversation and hold your own, at least some. So if you're not ready and you just sort of stumble in, then nobody really wants to help you because you haven't helped yourself. But if you are ready and you have a question, if you have done all that you can to be prepared for that moment and you still need support, then you ask. And you can even frame it. Well, I understand this part of what's going on, but here's where I'm stuck. Could you explain this to me? Or I did all the reading, all of the prep that we talked about, and I still really don't understand this. Could somebody help me to figure it out? But how often do you do that? A lot of times we just shrink. It's like, oh, I know I should have taken that class when I was in college. They say that those things that we didn't think were important, they actually are important. It's important right now. Have you ever had that experience? And you go, oh, I wish I had paid attention. Or I wish I had paid attention last week when this was explained and I was zoned out. You don't get 1,000 chances to ask these things, but you at least get one chance to ask a smart question, an intelligent question. And what is that? An informed question. I have prepared myself this much, and I still don't quite get it. When you show that you made the effort, people want to help you. So today's focus is about asking for help. And in a moment, I'm going to share the quote with you that I love. But before we get to that, I want to address, yes, of course, it's important to ask for help. And if you aren't ready, meaning if you haven't done whatever you can to be able to be fully present in the moment when you are asking for help, it can backfire. So what does that mean? If you are asking for help for the same thing that was an issue for you last month, last year, 5 years ago, same exact thing, and you're asking the same exact question, if you are asking it of the same people that you've been around for a long time who may have helped you in the past and you haven't improved, then those people may say, no, your chances are up. You didn't learn the first, second, third, fourth, fifth time, whatever it is, how to get good at whatever this thing is that you needed help with. If you haven't put in the effort, why should I keep helping? Fair question. So when you ask for help, it's got to be with the intention of learning, of imbibing whatever it is that the help is that you're getting, and then incorporating it in your life. When you do that, then it's like paying dividends. You do that, and then when you come across those same people who are who have observed you over time, and they say, "Oh, good, check. She did that really well. He paid attention when we talked about that thing long ago. I can tell that this person really puts in the effort." And when the person really puts in the effort and does as well as that person can, others want to support even more. So let's look at the quote. This is a quote from one of my favorite people, from President Barack Obama. So let's look at his quote and we'll share what he has to say about asking. He says, don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it. I do that every day, he says. Asking for help isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. It shows you have the courage to admit when you don't know something and to learn something new. Let's unpack that. The most important thing, the first thing right off the bat, he says, is don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it. Obama, the former president of the United States, says, I do that every day. Asking for help isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. It shows you have the courage to admit when you don't know something and to learn something new. Why is that important? It shows that you have the courage to admit when you don't know something and to learn something new. Sometimes people make the mistake of believing when you get to be a certain age, you should know everything, whatever everything is. And you're finished school, you're finished whatever training you may have taken for the work, the project, whatever it is that you're working on. And you should be able to check that box and understand. Obama says it shows you have the courage to admit when you don't know something and to learn something new. My mother used to say, I always quote my mother, you learn something new every day. Now, if you approach your day in that way, that you can indeed learn something new every day, then you approach life with a curiosity. Wow, what is there for me to learn today? What is there for me to take in and explore and engage my curiosity today, right now in this moment? What might that be? When you ask questions, then you're able to explore things that maybe you didn't understand before. I think it's fantastic when there's something new that I learn. I live in New York City. So recently, uh, we were driving up Avenue of the Americas, which is 6th Avenue. And I never really thought about why is it called Avenue of the Americas. There are a lot of different names, double names for streets, and you don't necessarily know why. On this particular day, now I have lived in New York City, I think, for about 35 years, a long time. And we're driving, you can take that quote down. As we're driving, my husband pointed out, well, the reason this is called Avenue of the Americas, well, or at least, if not the reason, one thing about it being called Avenue of the Americas, there are uh, uh, the flags of each country, or many, many countries in the Americas are, there's a like a placard that hangs with the flag on it from many different countries throughout the Americas. I never noticed it before, ever. I have ridden above ground on 6th Avenue hundreds, if not thousands of times. And wow, here was this discovery. It was so interesting. And then was looking at the names of the countries, and in my mind, like my daughter used to play this game, Stack the Countries. It's a video game learning tool for kids. And I just started thinking, oh, where's that country? And where's this in relation to that? It became a learning tool for me. It became a thought when my daughter was having her friends come to visit her in New York. And we said, oh, that would be a really cool thing to show them. That if you just look up a little bit, here's something that you see on this street that we've been driving on for years and years and years. Why does that matter? It's just showing what happens with curiosity. There's something that you can learn every day, or you can go, I can't believe I never saw that before. Do I have my eyes open? Why am I not? And you can go down the rabbit hole of negativity, beating yourself up. And I'm using this as an example because it's light, right? Whether you see these signs about countries or not. But you can take the same thinking and apply it to something much more serious. Is there something in the way you live your life, in the way that you do your work, in the way that you interact with other people, where there's a blind spot, where there's something obvious to others that would help for you to do that you haven't seen, that you aren't aware of? Most of us have at least one blind spot. So if there is, and you figure out, this is a thing for me, this is something I need to work on, then if you ask for help, the key, if you ask for help, then what happens? If you ask for help, you create the opportunity for you to learn in that moment. Learn something new today. Get the support you need in order to open your eyes in a different way to be able to tackle whatever that challenge is with fresh eyes, with fresh understanding. Barack Obama said he asks questions every day. Now, you could imagine you're the head of a country. What are you the head of? Are you a head of your family? Are you the head of a division in your job? Are you the head of a project? What do you feel that you have a responsibility for in your life? A significant responsibility. And whatever that is, that thing that you feel you have responsibility for, do you feel like you're supposed to understand every single thing about that responsibility so that you should not have to ask a question in order to be able to do it? A lot of times we feel that way. And by the way, I've coached so many people who have moved from being part of a team to running a team. And that transition from being a team member to being a team leader. Very often, this is where what we now call imposter syndrome, but even before it was called that, people would feel, oh my God, I don't know how to do this. I'm now in a leadership role. I didn't take a leadership class. How am I supposed to do this? What am I supposed to do? How about if I don't know? And then that spiral of questions happens, right? And you go, they're going to find me out. I'm not going to be able to keep this. Or if it's not work, just you can feel like you're not good enough. You can feel like if anybody learns how much I don't know about whatever this topic is, then, the sky comes falling in, right? What if you take a different approach? Team, family, friends, whoever, members of committee. I don't have all the answers, but I do have a lot of questions. And maybe if we can answer these questions together, come up with the answers, we can move forward together. Not alone. Now, I began this broadcast talking about when you are successful, it's often because you have support. You don't suffer under the delusion that you can do everything on your own. I maintain that always, that even when you feel like it's you, typically it's you plus others. It's a team. There are people who help you to get to your goal. And sometimes it's a team goal. So if you are in this leadership role, I want you to consider that the way to stay in it, the way to be successful in it, just like Obama said, is to ask questions. Do not pretend that you know the answer if you don't. Now, of course, you can do research. Your first question might be, look, we have the internet now. Going online, researching, finding out absolutely everything you can about the topic that you are supposed to be expert at, whatever it might be. And then asking informed questions of people you trust who will tell you their understanding of the answer. Ask informed questions. Ask them often. Ask until you understand. And you do, and it's important, really important, you think about who you are asking. Sometimes people are not as generous as others. Some people are not as generous as others. Some people will not tell you the truth. So you have to be mindful of who you ask, when you ask, how you ask, and what you do with the information after you get it. If you ask a person at the right time, you take it in, you sit with it, you study it, you analyze it to see what can you learn from this situation. How can you apply whatever the information is that you received when you asked for it so that you can do whatever the task is at hand better? How do you follow up so that you've asked something in the moment? I'm sure you say thank you, but how do you follow up so that whoever you asked feels, oh, it was worthwhile? Not only saying thank you, but maybe following up to say, I really appreciate the advice that you gave me the other day or the insight you gave me the other day, and here's how I'm implementing it. You might give that comment to them a year later. You might have an aha moment because a seed that was planted because you asked a question whenever in the past, and now it is manifesting, and you double back to said person and say, remember when I asked you that question however long ago? This is what has happened as a result of me learning from what you shared. So let's go back to Obama's quote again. He says, don't be afraid to ask questions. I want you to really take that in. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it. I do that every day, he says. Asking for help isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. It shows you have the courage to admit when you don't know something and to learn something new. I hope that this is resonating with you. Asking questions shows courage. Asking questions shows strength. I'm going to bet that some of you don't think that. And that's why I'm repeating it. Obama, one of the highest EQs, emotional intelligence. He's very thoughtful, very smart. And he says, don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it. I remember I had the privilege of producing a photo shoot with Barack Obama, a couple of them, but one right after he was elected president. And he had gone to the White House and met President Bush, walked him and Michelle through the White House so they could see it before they moved in. And our photo shoot was right after that. And I asked him, what were you thinking when you were I asked him what did he think Bush was thinking in that moment, and he didn't hear me. What he told me is what he was thinking as he was walking through the White House. And he said, I wasn't thinking. I was just being fully present in the moment. There was so much going on. I just was fully present, taking it all in and learning. That made me so happy and confident that when he was in office, he was going to do his best because he was going to be paying attention to the moment, soaking it all in and learning. He says, don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it. He does it every day, even now. Asking for help isn't a sign of weakness. Are you hearing this? It's a sign of strength. It shows you have the courage to admit when you don't know something and to learn something new. And I will add, ask the smartest questions that you can come up with. How do you make smart questions? You pay attention, you prepare. You don't just say whatever's on the top of your head. What do you really want to know? What knowledge could you gain from this moment? Be thoughtful as you ask questions. Be as prepared as you can so that your question will show that you are thinking, that you are observing, like Obama said to me that day, that you're observing the moment and you ask something that's right for the moment. You pick your moments. So not every question is in the big crowd. Sometimes questions are one-on-one. Not every question is loud. Not every question, probably most questions, shouldn't be emotional. You want them to be grounded. It's better if those questions are neutrally charged rather than fiery. They should not be accusatory. They should be curious. If you use your tone well to ask questions so that you create a welcoming environment for them to be answered, and you follow up and let people know how you took care of the wisdom they shared with you, then they will continue to answer your questions. So I hope you go out there today, pay attention and ask the questions that will help you to move yourself and those in your midst forward with grace, with integrity, with clarity. Don't be afraid to ask questions, everybody. It's worth it. Just prepare yourself so that you ask the right question at the right time. Until next time, have a great day and make it count. Namaste.